Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk the Hind Leg Off Horse. Today we are going to be discussing bodyworking on horses and all the different aspects of it. So I'm Casey McKenna, Georgie Welge at the end, and then we've got Laura Tollett and Sophie Plummer-Jones who have come on to talk to us about everything bodyworking.
I'm Sophie, I am a McTimoney chiropractor and an equine bodyworker, but I treat all animals, so not just horses, dogs, goats, sheep, pigs, cows, anything with four legs basically, and anything from your competition horse, competitive dog, to your pets, your happy hackers, and everything in between.
So I'm Laura, I'm a vet and chiropractor, also do acupuncture, so, a bit like Sophie, do treat kind of anything really, predominantly horses but also dogs, a few cows, goats, things like that as well.
No chickens.
No chickens yet.
No chickens or guinea pigs.
Or guinea pigs.
Cool. So I have a lot of questions because as a saddle fitter I see obviously a lot of horses. I get my hands on them. I have done a few bodywork courses and a bit of fascia release stuff and things that just because I wanted to learn more about anatomy and more about the functionality and actual palpation techniques so I can better assess horses' backs when I'm saddle fitting. But what I have learned is the staggering range of knowledge and ability of body workers in general is rather broad. I mean, you have people that literally been and done like I've done several weekend courses and some that have been on for like a couple of weeks at a time. So, but yet there's people out there can go do a 2-day course and then call themselves a body worker.
Yep.
When the instructor isn't even a qualified person. Like, it's scary.
It's really scary.
It is quite scary, and the term physio or physiotherapist isn't a protected term. So as much as Laura and I are not physios, we could call ourselves physiotherapists. And your person that has done the weekend course could call themselves a physiotherapist. But then that's not fair to the people that have done the 4-year master's degree or things like that, or people like Laura that have become a vet first and then gone on to specialise and put in years and years of studying that should be able to call themselves a title. And it's quite a tricky industry to be in sometimes with.
Yeah, and this is, you know, why we wanted to do this episode, wasn't it? I mean, both of us, I'm sure, have seen, if we're confused by it, then clients certainly are. Yeah. And, you know, how do you differentiate between, you know, because it could be easy. I mean, I know that there's certain saddle fitting organisations that recommend you must only use an ACPAT physio.
Yes.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the best for that horse or what you need at that time. And actually that will only be one methodology, right?
Yes, so I think every individual is different. So some horses, dogs might need a physio, some might need a chiropractor, some might need an osteopath, some might need acupuncture, and every animal is different. And also in the treatment that they like and prefer, because actually if you're giving them a treatment that they don't enjoy, they're not going to relax into it, so their body's not going to respond to it well. If they're having a treatment that they find relaxing and enjoyable, their body responds to it better and then they get a better outcome from it. So I think it's really important that even as a practitioner, if I go to an animal and they are not responding in the way that I think they should be, I will always refer them to someone else. And I'm really lucky that in the area that I cover, I'm very close and work well with a lot of practitioners in this area that do lots of different modalities, and some that do electrotherapy, some that are osteopaths, some that are physios, and I will ring them and just say, look, I've got this horse, it's not responding to what I do, but I think it would suit what you do.
Perfect.
And we pass them between each other. Awesome. But then I think there's also a lot of people out there that they are so determined to fix that horse themselves that they're not willing to pass it on to someone else. And actually the reason why I came into this job is to make the lives of horses better, if you like, or make them feel better, make them to be able to perform better. And I just think, well, if I'm not being able to do that because they don't enjoy what I do, which is mostly McTimney chiropractic work, if they don't enjoy the adjustments and they're not relaxing into it, they're never going to feel better from it. So they need to go to someone that they enjoy that treatment. And I think everyone just needs to work together.
Yes. We are a huge fan of working as a team and having your team for your horse and for yourself.
Yeah.
Laura, what do you think about it, or what have you come across?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what Sophie said. Different horses, a bit like people, we all respond sort of differently to different things.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of clients, and me included, my horse, so you're alternating sort of more the chiropractic, sort of the manipulation side of it, with sort of soft tissue work, sort of with the physio, can work really nicely, because although we all want to achieve the same thing, we work very differently, we look at different things, we feel different things.
Yeah.
So it's not just one person for each horse. So if you can work out a routine that suits.
Perfect. And if we, sorry, just because as you were talking, you're kind of talking about the soft tissue work and obviously the chiropractic work. Maybe you could, because I don't think that people really understand the difference between the modalities.
I mean, people sort of have a back person as such, and that can literally be anything from, so as well as sort of physio side, the chiropractic, osteo. You've also got, like you said earlier, sort of myofascial work. You've even got things like sort of bone therapy, equine touch. There's so many different things.
Reiki, if you want to add that in.
Trying to think of anything else to add in there. And I'm sure there's others that we've missed as well, Masterson method, things like that. So, having just a back person is a very broad kind of thing. And it, as Sophie said, sort of some horses will respond happier and relax more with one treatment. I mean, my own horse, I can't chiro it for love nor money.
I like it.
I absolutely hate it. Well, literally, she's the sweetest horse, as Katie knows. Like, she would literally try and kill me. My friend who's a physio, she can come in, treat her, absolutely no problem. So, I mean, if I do ever have to sedate her for anything else, obviously I wouldn't sedate her just for that, then I will make the most of it and I will adjust as needed. But I can't treat her. She will go to sleep when...
Do you find that with some horses, though, they just don't like the kind of
I mean, the ones that I normally struggle with are typically like the horses that are really painful, like your kissing spine horse. So they're either really, really sore, or they've just had so much intervention already that
they don't like to be touched.
They're just so guarded anyway. But I mean, the majority of horses do really like it. I mean, mine's probably one of the worst that I see.
Have you tried to have another chiropractor?
No, because I don't really know. There aren't many of us in our area, so I actually don't have anyone else to come in.
I only say that because a few years ago I previously had a horse that I couldn't treat, my own horse. He would not let me.
I did wonder if it was me.
And I have another McTimney chiropractor in this area, and she had a mare that she couldn't treat. So she used to come and treat mine, and I used to go and treat hers, and we just
fine.
And we
but
just
you're
swapped.
Sort of essentially doing the same thing.
Yes.
They didn't like you doing it.
I do wonder if it's because it's mum and
it was exactly that. It's like, you are my human and my owner and my mum. You shouldn't be doing that to me. So we just used to do each other's. And
it's like it's taking our relation to a different level.
Yes. So I wonder what she'd be like.
I have thought about it. But there aren't many of us around.
No, that's the trouble, isn't it?
Laura, so obviously you trained to be a vet initially.
Yes.
What made you go down the kind of chiropractic route and the body working route as well?
Well, where I used to work, we used to send a lot of horses to a vet chiro up in Norfolk, and he used to work wonders on the, the sort of the probably sort of more poor performance cases, or the lameness that you're sort of, they're sound but there's still something not quite right. So I used to go and spend sort of my days off with him. Spent a lot of time shadowing him. And he sort of said, basically, why are you here? Why don't you go and do it yourself? So I thought, fair point.
Well, I suppose then it adds another dynamic to what you can do in terms of, because as you say, I mean, and as most good vets will admit, there is only so much a vet can do. Essentially, a vet is trying to make sure a horse is sound and is comfortable. It has no kind of underlying pathologies that are causing it pain, but ultimately they can treat those bits, but everything surrounding that isn't a vet's job, is
Yeah.
it? It's then down to the body workers to then work on, you know, how their muscles have then changed. You know, it's no different to humans, isn't it? If you've got a sore foot, then sometimes your back starts hurting, and it's like because you're compensating, and so it's the compensatory kind of patterns that horses develop that's not a vet's job to fix, is it? So I think people sometimes perhaps don't understand that, you know, the vets obviously are very crucial for the, you know, the underlying things that are causing a horse pain and causing them to carry themselves in a bizarre way, but, you know, they're not going to fix, you know, if a horse has been carrying itself crooked for a long time and its muscles have developed in a funny way, that's then going to be down to body workers and you as the rider trainer to you know, change those patterns and change how it's you know, how it's moving.
And that's when I think it's really important, like if you can get the owner on board with being like a team effort and have your chiro or your physio and then maybe your trainer or coach, they can liaise with each other, because then they can say, well, we need to work on these exercises more to work on this part of the horse's body, and then you have your vet involved as well, and then even the farrier, and have everyone involved. That horse gets to where it needs to be far quicker than if you're all working on your own and not all working together.
And I think the thing is that, I mean, something I've come up against in the past with you know, clients that I'm coaching is, you know, a body worker comes and treats the horse, and then they say to the client, you know, oh, your horse needs to do pole work, that would be really good for it. They don't specify what kind of pole work, they just say pole work generally. I mean, that is a pretty broad subject. But then, you know, as I then have to explain to them, you know, some of these riders, they don't have enough understanding of how to work a horse over poles for it to actually be beneficial. And I've had to explain to people before.
They can't even trot in a straight line properly.
And I've had to explain to people that, you know, actually, to me, if you're you know, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have a line of poles, so a simple exercise line of poles that you're trotting over, and that horse has its head so high in the air that it's basically inverting itself, you're actually doing more harm than good. You'd be better off not doing the poles. So I've had to several times explain to my clients, you know, the pole work, absolutely brilliant for horses, really good for them, if you know, if it's done in the right way. You have to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. So unless it's explained to them that, you know, actually that horse's head and neck position, the speed it's travelling, the balance it's in, it's all going to affect how beneficial those poles are.
And even the distance apart and
absolutely.
Trying to get them to you know, shorten and come up through the core, or when you're actually trying to
elongate their stride or whatever you're trying to do, you know. And I think that's where, you know, sometimes for me, some body workers can be a little bit, you know, if you're talking to somebody, you know, I mean, for example, you know, if you've come and treated one of my horses and you said to me, oh, it would do it a lot of good to do some poles, do this, do that, do the other, you're not having to explain to me how that horse needs to carry itself, because you can explain to me what you want it to try and achieve. My knowledge can then go, right, I can do this, that and the other to achieve that. A lot of people with their one horse, they don't know that. So then if they're not then getting the input from a trainer or from the body worker as to exactly how to do it, I mean, actually they could be doing a whole lot of harm, really, you know, making things worse.
So I think it really depends on what type of client I go to, and you're probably the same in that if I say to someone they need to do raised walk poles or whatever the exercise may be, if I don't feel that they are confident in knowing how to set that up, I literally say, come on, let's go out to the arena and we set the poles up and we space them out and show them how to set them up, because then I know that we even take photos or videos of this is how many steps you do between each pole and things like that, because I don't want to go away and then do 6 weeks of pole work between my visits and do it all wrong.
And then you find the horse is actually worse than it was when you saw it last time.
But if I went to someone like yourself and you know how to set up a pole exercise, I know I can say to Casey, set up a raised walk pole exercise with this distance quite short and it's going to be done correctly. And I think you just have to learn your client's ability and their experience. And also it might be that they've got a new horse and actually their new horse has really long legs and their old horse had quite short legs, and the poles are going to be a completely different distance, and silly things like that. It's just teaching them that actually not every pole exercise for every horse is going to be the same, and even if it's just a basic walk poles on the floor, the distances could still have to be different. So I do just say, come on, let's go out there and take the horse with us. We'll set it all up, make sure that we're both happy, and then I leave them with it, rather than just saying, here's a bit of paper with some pole exercises.
So it's a real prescriptive training, you know, or not training, I guess, more rehab almost. It's a rehab situation there, where you're preparing the horse for the next level of what you want to be able to do it. So in the hope that next time you go back, the muscles are functioning better, that you might even be able to treat that next layer because you've managed to get rid of some of the superficial tension or weakness.
Because ultimately, when you treat a horse, most of the improvement is done by the owner in between the treatments. And if they don't do the homework, if you like, then the horse doesn't actually improve.
Well, and that's a really good point, right? I mean, that, you know, because it's become very fashionable, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but it has become very much a case of, I'll call the body worker in or the back person in or anything else.
And they'll fix it.
Exactly.
To be fair though, I like to say that, I'm like, just fix this.
And this is, but it is a problem. It's like, and then when I look at the horse, I'm like, no, that's actually really quite lame. Like a body worker, no vet.
That's a whole other story.
Well, exactly. And the problem with this conversation, right? There's like all of these tangents. You know, because it is the fact, like we've been harping on episode after episode, is it does take a team, and that does mean that you have to pick up the phone to each of your professionals, arrange for them to be there or arrange for them to talk, and educate yourself as to what each person is saying, and then try and bring them all together. It's not an easy thing to do.
No, but I think that's where it's the responsibility really of the horse owner or the trainer to make sure that everybody can work together, everybody's kind of accessible. I mean, a conversation with the vet might then lead to a conversation with the farrier, and that might then lead to the farrier requesting x-rays of feet so that you can get the balance right. Or likewise for a body worker, and then saying, okay, right, well, I think I then need to speak to the vet, and then maybe the vet needs to talk to the body worker so that they're on the same page, and what are you seeing, what are they seeing? In the end, if you've got a really good team of experienced professionals and you pool all of their knowledge together and everyone works together, you can get a far better result than if you're just going, well, a bit here and a bit there, and there's no crossover between when all of it is linked. So
I think also a lot of owners aren't aware that you need to get everyone talking sometimes, and it actually takes for one of the professionals to say, come on, we all need to pull together, and some people don't think maybe in that way, and it just takes for that one person to say, right, I need to speak to them and we need to speak to them, and we all maybe need to get here at the same time or something like that. And I think we probably need a little bit more of that sometimes.
And I mean, I know that's something that, because I know Georgie has said this in the past, one of her frustrations as a saddle, the saddle fitter.
I was going to say. There's been a few.
It's all right. we won't put any swear words in.
Okay.
But that, how frustrating it can be for her when a body worker comes in, looks at a horse, and the first thing they say is, well, the saddle doesn't fit. That's what's making it sore. And that is their absolute, they are definite, it is the saddle. Now, they could be correct, because as Georgie and I have spoken about, and, there are a lot of not so good saddle fitters out there. But it's the thing of, is that a fair judgment to make when you're when you're looking at a horse?
It's hard, because I think if I've gone to a horse and there's real glaring obvious signs that the saddle isn't fitting, I will try to be diplomatic and say, is your saddle fitter? In a kind of discreet way. And if it's someone that I know well and I trust them as a professional, and I go, okay, so that's fine, the saddle should be fitting, but we have got issues in that area, we're going to do another treatment. If we've still got issues in that area, then we'll pull the saddle fitter in and say, can you just rule this out for me? Yeah. I'm not saying this is a saddle issue necessarily, but we just need to rule this out. If it's a saddle fitter that I don't know, have never heard of, or anything along those lines, I will say, okay, would you mind if we maybe go to someone that I would consider as like part of my team of professionals that I know and trust, and get them in, get them to say, yep, the saddle's good or bad, and then we go from there. But I don't think you can ever blame someone, like you can't say, oh, that horse is lame because the farrier's done a bad job, or it's because generally it's because the horse has just got bad feet and the farrier's doing the best job that they can. And often if the horse's back is sore in the saddle area, it's because the horse has got a really poor top line and the saddle fitter's just doing the best job that they can.
Exactly that.
But I think if they're using someone that you've never heard of, are they potentially someone that aren't very well qualified? Do we need to get someone that does
experience?
And do we need to get someone in that does have a lot of experience, because maybe that horse does have a really poor top line because it might be a new horse to them and it's come from somewhere where it won't work correctly, you need to get the team together.
And of course, I suppose the good thing about it, if you have good relationships with other professionals in the area that like the bodyworkers and the saddlers and the vets and what have you, then there is always the potential you can have a conversation with them and say, look, I'm finding it's getting really sore in its back. What are you finding with its saddle? And the saddler might be going, well, I'm a bit worried about that because I've been finding it's a bit sore in its back when I'm fitting the saddle, and maybe the saddle's behaving in a funny way, like it's rolling off one way or whatever, and then actually between you go, I think actually they need to get the vet to look at it.
I was going to say, because a lot of horses that I find really repeatedly tight and sore in the back, quite often there's a hind limb lameness.
Amen! Thank you!
The number of horses that I trot, I'll go out for a routine chiro, and the number of horses that I trot up, and a lot of them I will sit on the lunge as well, they're not sound.
No.
And the owner does just want the back person to come in and fix things.
And again, that's another valid point, isn't it? Is that as a body worker, people have to, it's managing expectations, isn't it? So in the end, and I'm sure you guys treat horses who are maybe, they're old, they're a bit stiff, they're a bit wonky, they've had a life. In the end, you're not going to make them perfect. You're just keeping them as comfortable
as they can be.
Absolutely. For the work that's expected of them, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. I think that's really interesting, is that, so I've had it recently, obviously I'm sure you guys have got your own stories as well, but I love telling stories, so I'm going to. But this client has got a 22-year-old ex-event horse, and she's been having the body worker repeatedly every 3 to 4 weeks.
Oh wow!
Which that already already gives alarm bells, right? And it's the only thing that keeps him comfortable. Otherwise, he's trying to chew my face off every time I put the saddle on and things like that. And I'm looking at him. It's the first time I've been called in, and I was like, well, I wouldn't say he's very sound. Oh no, my trainer says he's fine. He's a 22-year-old ex-eventer. I was like, has he had any of his feet x-rayed? Has he had his hocks x-rayed? Like, has there been any diagnostics carried out? No, because he's fine. The vet said he's fine. He's good for how old he is. And I'm like, but good for how old he is and sound for what you want him to do are not the same thing. So let's not be scared of doing some diagnostics work. And the physio in that situation, or the body worker, I don't know what qualifications she was. She actually sent me a message and she said, thank you very much. She said, I've been telling this client to get diagnostics done for quite a while. But on the flip side of that, I've also had other situations where the body worker keeps going out, and they're determined to try and fix the horse itself when it's clearly lame.
I do find a lot of body workers don't trot them up.
Oh really?
And if they don't, and also if they do trot them up, do they know what they're looking for? I mean, I spend my days watching horses trot up and down, and that's pretty much all I do. And yeah, there are a lot of people, particularly maybe the people you were referring to earlier that's done the weekend course, that don't necessarily know, you know, horse trots away in a straight line if it's 2/10 lame right hind,
or bilaterally lame.
Are they? Well, that's no disrespect to them, but are they actually going to notice?
No, absolutely. And this is the thing, like lameness assessments, it's just not easy. There's not every vet is the best at diagnosing lameness, because it's quite gait analysis is quite a complex thing and skill set to learn. I mean, even some of the AI stuff now, it's got so many flaws to it, and if it isn't calibrated, etc. But yes, you're dead right. If the body workers don't have enough training, which at a 2-day course,
you're not going to.
You're not going to.
And unless you've got a natural eye for seeing the lameness before you've gone and done your weekend courses.
When you're talking of trainers saying, you know, oh, the horse is fine, you know, in the end, you know, I feel as a trainer, you know, I mean, I watch horses move day in, day out, you know, all sorts of different types of horses. I'm watching them walk, trot, canter. I mean, yes, different rider abilities, and actually sometimes it's harder to see if a horse is a bit uncomfortable when you've got a really good rider on them,
absolutely,
because they can almost ride them so they look good, look sound, and they're not. But in the end, I think, you know, as a trainer, you've got an obligation to try and point people in the right direction with their horses. If they're not quite right, you know, you should be able to see that, and you should be able to go, okay, they're not quite right, get a bit of the backstory on the horse, and right, do they need you know, a body worker, and are they using the right kind of body worker? Do they need the saddle looking at? Do they need the farrier to look at the horse? Do they need a vet to look at the horse? You know, in the end, pointing them in the right direction to try and get the right result. You know, in the end, you can't. I think everybody that is involved with horses in any capacity has an obligation to, you know, speak up and say their bit, and it's not a nice conversation to have. I mean, when I've had to pull people up in a lesson, when I've, you know, someone I've maybe never met before, and then I watch the horse trot round and I think, oh, this is not good, and I've had to stop them and say, look, this horse is really
you're not there just to teach the person. You're there for the welfare of the animal as well, because as a professional, that's what you are there for.
That's what all of us are there for. All professionals.
And no matter what part of the industry you're in. So, and I think if you see that horse is uncomfortable in any way and it is lame, then the owner needs to be told.
I completely agree with you. But actually, like Casey says, it can be really quite tricky sometimes to have those conversations. I mean, over the years I've been doing it, I've literally had people turn around and say, you're a saddle fitter, what on earth are you doing trying to diagnose? I'm like, I'm not diagnosing. I'm saying that I'm concerned. I'm even cautious of using the word lame. I try and use a gait abnormality, or or is short, or there's something. Please, I'm referring you to a vet. And I've literally had clients come back at me and go, how dare you criticise my horse? And you're like, hang on.
Well, everyone's trying to help, aren't they? You're not saying it out of spite. You're saying it because you want to try and help people, aren't you? That's the thing. And I'm sure, you know, you've had situations where, you know, someone calls you out to do you know, some work on a horse, you know, from a bodywork point of view or a chiropractic point of view, and you're having to say, well, actually, I can't treat this horse because there's you know, you're not happy treating it unless a vet's seen it, you know, and people do get offended. They don't
absolutely.
like that.
But they will go and ring somebody else. Somebody else. Whether that be they go to another trainer or they go to another physio, they will find somebody that will give them what they want and take their money. And it's still
instead of going to the vet.
The problem.
But then that, you know, is a problem, I think, isn't it? Is that I think there's a lot of people in all aspects of the horse world that are a bit too prepared just to take the money. And just go, oh, well, you know, I'll just take the money and, you know, keep coming back out and whatever, and that's fine, you know, instead of actually kind of going, look, you know, a bit like what you're saying earlier, if you feel like a horse isn't responding to how you're treating it, you know, well, it isn't responding.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. It's no. You know, sort of criticism of anything you're doing or how well you do your job. It's just down to that horse. It doesn't work. It's no different with us. You know, like before we started filming, you know, we're talking about, you know, I mean, I go and get acupuncture done. I found that's the best treatment for me.
Exactly.
I have, you know, osteopaths and chiropractors and whatever, but that one out of all of them, you know, suits me the best. So that's what I do more of. You know, I think, you know, we do have to kind of, well, in the end, it's all coming down to being open-minded about everything.
Yeah.
You know.
I think also going back to when you said about saddle fitters and back pain and things like that, I found not only is it hind limb lameness, but asymmetry in riders.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the amount of riders that I send to go and have themselves treated.
Me too.
And people say, well, it can't be me, it can't be me. And I say, well, it can be you. And then all of a sudden they've gone and had a few treatments, and then all of a sudden the horse feels fantastic now.
I think people spend more money on their horse to get
Than themselves,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Like, miss the next treatment with me and go and use that money and go and get yourself fixed.
Absolutely. And it makes such a difference.
Yeah, it really
Particularly, I've gone to riders where they have multiple horses. This isn't UK, so.
Careful.
Where I might see that every single horse either has asymmetry on the same side of their body or misalignments on the same side of their body, or there's some kind of pattern that is, I find, in every single horse that person rides. And then that highlights to me that this is a rider asymmetry rather than anything else that's going on.
And humans aren't symmetrical, right?
No.
We're not symmetrical.
No.
Our
Nor are the
organs
horses.
No.
internally are not symmetrical, nor are the horses. So we are taking two biologically asymmetric beings and trying to make them work in harmony with one another.
Trying.
Nevertheless, in my experience, I found that humans will generally choose to ride horses that match their asymmetry because they find them easier to ride. And interesting, I had a client last year who bought a new horse who had the opposite asymmetry, which I was a bit like shocked. I was like, this is not what I was expecting. Well, anyway, 4 months later, he then became symmetrical, and I was like, holy moly, we've cracked it, great. Next time,
Gone the other way.
So she has changed his asymmetry
Goodness.
to match her own. And I mean, she's got rods in her back. There's nothing that she can do to kind of correct that. She has bodywork and she has all of that stuff, and you know, she is compromised. But yeah, she completely changed this horse's symmetry. And I was just like, to the point where you've like, oh, you had a balance for a few months. We were symmetrical.
Now you need to find someone that's a bit wonky the other way.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
It is
I mean,
almost
but it's
that,
like
isn't
that same thing, you know, I mean, and I've said that to people in the past, you know, I mean, I always used to joke, you know, if I've had a horse, you know, it's a bit, well, I mean, it's a bit like I've said to you, you know, when you say, oh, that one's a bit sore on that side, and that one's a bit sore on that side, well, at least it's not me then, eh? It's like, 'cause it's, you know, they're different. Or it's a bit, you know, if I've had a day of training, you know, on multiple horses, and I've had a couple of, because often a horse does sit you slightly one way or the other, you know, and I'd have stop sitting to the right, stop sitting to the right, and then I get on one later, stop sitting to the left, and I'm like, see, it's not me sitting to the right. It was, you know, because in the end they do carry you slightly differently.
I mean, in saddle fitting work, we talk about that because obviously from movement of the limbs, you then gain rotation of the rib cage, and depending, and most will cause the saddle to slip. I think we worked it out. The figures so far about 82% slip the saddle to the right.
Oh, okay.
So it's quite a big percentage.
That's really interesting.
And that's kind of matching. I mean, it's like you said earlier about how many horses have hind limb lameness. I mean, Sue Dyson did that research, 15 years ago, something like that, wasn't it?
Like that.
And she had 83% or 87%, wasn't it, back then?
I can't remember the numbers, but it was high.
High. Would you say it's any different now?
No, probably not. No.
And is it not true? I was told a statistic about that when they've done these studies into hind limb lameness as well, and actually majority of hind limb lameness in horses would start or first present in the right hind leg and is usually worse in the right hind leg. than the left, because I was talking to someone about this study that someone had done, and I thought that's a bit of an interesting thing as well. Is why is that?
Yeah.
You know, and why? And that was when it was talking about. You know, it was all about rider biomechanics and things like that, and it was kind of, is that the horses, the way they carry themselves predominantly that cause that, or is that because of how we sit on them? So, you know, a bit like with, you know, most people in the world
are stronger on their right side.
Are right-handed, right-footed, you know, all the rest of it. They'd kick a ball with the right leg and use their right hand to ride. There's, you know, a lot less are left-handed. So it's that kind of, is it because riders are naturally inclined to go a bit one way, and then horses then are trying to counteract that? You know, do the horses counteract the riders, or do the riders counteract the horses? You know, it's that kind of chicken and egg situation. But in the end, you know, it's very hard, like you say, you know, you've got, you know, a moving human, a moving horse, then a static saddle in the middle of it, and then it's like, you know, we won't get onto that subject.
The magic saddle that's supposed to fix all of the problems and never cause any pressure.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really interesting. It's you know, like I've been working with these guys in Sweden and over in America as well, and we've been doing some research and collecting some data, and it's interesting you say like the right hind ended up being a problem. Generally in youngsters as well, and I don't know if you've had this experience, they tend to struggle with right lead canter more than they do left, which can be quite problematic, and it generally ends up being the right hind, but that fits in again with those statistics of 82-83% of the saddle slipping to the right. So you know, there's an ingrained handedness in horses. You know, I mean, you only have to look, I mean, Anna, my mare that you've got, from the day like within an hour of being born, she would stand the same way in the field when she's grazing, always the same way, and it just so happens that also matches her asymmetry in her front feet. So, you know, has she made that, or was it her biology, how she was made, that why she stood that? You know, like it's the chicken and egg situation. We can't really know, can we? And ultimately, if they were just going to be out in the field and we didn't expect them to do anything, then it wouldn't really matter, would it? But the fact that we asked them to go do a dressage test or jump round across country or a show jumping course means that it's our job to make them as symmetrical for longevity. So that we're not putting undue strain on singular joints or anything going, you know, asymmetrically, putting those extra strains and pressures on. So it's our jobs and riders and trainers and owners to kind of help limit those things that can happen, because we can't get rid of compensation patterns. You know, you've treated Anna a few times now, and each time you made that slight comment of the right hind was still struggling with tension, and she had that slight asymmetry. She's just had a Hox x-rayed, and her left has got a real slight bone spur that's just started occurring. So, you know, was she then putting more strain on that right hind because her left hock was a bit sore? You know,
more than likely.
And even the vet was like, it's tiny. I mean, you have to zoom in, and it's probably 0.5 millimetre. You know,
it's minimal.
It's really minimal. But that kind of reinforces what I see, is that because horses are so stoic, they will put away any pain and not show any. So for a horse to be showing a lameness, they've actually got to be in a pretty decent amount of pain.
And also being quadrupeds, they are the masters of compensation.
Where do I put it? Oh, I've got 4 legs to choose from.
I mean, you've got bilateral lameness. It takes a lot longer for people to
see it.
And so another well, I always think it's a good statement that I hear, and I've heard many times from people, possibly more the slightly more old-fashioned people in the horse world, that would say that you know, if you work your horse correctly, you don't need physios, chiropractors, all that sort of stuff. So what's your answer to that? If someone said to you, you know, well, I don't need a body worker because I work my horse properly, what would you say to them?
I mean, if you go to the gym and work correctly in the gym, you're still going to get tight and sore because you're actually using your muscles and everything's developing. And I mean, like Georgie said earlier, no person is completely straight, and you're never going to work your horse completely symmetrical. So yes, you're working your horse correctly and you're doing your very best, but there are always well, I feel there's always going to be compensation patterns. They're always going to get tight because they're actually using themselves. So I mean, personally, I think if you want the best out of a horse, you should give it
the only thing I do find is horses that are worked correctly, I would possibly do less chiropractic treatment and more soft tissue treatment, because I think because they are using themselves correctly, they are using all of their muscles, so they get quite tight through their bodies, and they need a lot of soft tissue work. But because they are moving with good straightness, actually skeletally they are quite even. But in terms of, they certainly still need the soft tissue work. So yeah, they still do need the physio.
How many, for a question for you, Casey, how many of your client base would you think can acknowledge when a horse is straight? Like straight on a circle. I mean, you know, like, oh, it's falling out through that circle, or it's falling in. How many, percentage-wise, how many would you think could identify that?
I'm going to go a relatively low percentage. Yeah. Actually know when their horse is really straight, or where it's falling out, falling in, where all 4 feet are on the ground, you know. So it's, you know, and again, you know, some of that comes down to people's natural feel on a horse. Some people have very good natural feel on a horse, and they just can feel where things are, and they don't necessarily know, I mean, they don't know how they do it necessarily, they just feel where it is, probably backed up by having a good trainer who has actually taught them. You know, I mean, I was told when I was younger by a guy that I trained with for a long time, you know, that I mean, I was about 14, and I mean, he said to, she said to my mother, because she was there watching me train, and said, you know, I had incredibly good feel on a horse, but it is absolutely no good to me unless I know what I'm feeling. And it's a very valid point. I see riders that ride that have no idea they have great feel on a horse. I can see they've got good feel on a horse, but they don't know what they're feeling, so it is irrelevant. But you can learn what is correct, but you do need, you know, either things like having mirrors in your arena can be really useful, just so that you can see if you're riding a straight line towards them, you know, you shouldn't be able to see your horse's back feet. You know, the back feet should be landing in the same line as the front feet. You know, not everyone can have mirrors, but then equally having somebody on the ground that can see where a horse is falling in and out. But they're not only looking at, you know, footfall, because just because the horse's feet are landing where they should, it doesn't mean to say they're not slightly leaning out for a shoulder, or leaning in, you know,
or the head,
or the head's doing one thing or the other, or, you know. So but it's hard because there's a lot going on when you're on a horse. You know, there's an awful lot going on, and to know where everything is at one time. And all horses like to go one way more than the other. You know, they like to, and it's very common, you know, most horses, you know, whichever way they fall out, they then fall in on the opposite rein. You know, that's the way they like to go. But most riders are slightly stronger on one rein than the other. You know, and it's very common you see a rider, you know, if they, for example, use their right rein too much and don't use their left rein enough, the horses fall out to the left, you know, when they're going round to the right, because they can't, you know, they're using too much inside rein, the horse falls to the outside, and then vice versa, when they're on the outside, they can have too much outside rein and the horse is slightly falling in, you know. But it's whether you, as a rider, you have to be able to understand, you know, what straight is, you know, and not so much even
but
straight, but alignment. How to achieve it, absolutely. But, you know, like alignment in a horse, you know, when a horse is actually aligned in whatever it's doing. And like I always say to people, in a basic way, you've got to imagine like your horse is on a railway line. And it's got 2 feet on either track, you know, and that is the baseline that every horse should be learning from day dot. When you start riding them, they go on that railway line. From there, then, you know, when you're positioning them into lateral work, shoulder in, leg yield, travers, whatever, you're just bringing 2 of the limbs, you know, off the track slightly, you know, and that's where you're positioning them. But that does also come down to having enough understanding over a horse's kind of biomechanics and how it moves and what it affects what. You know,
and understanding the weighting of the limbs, like you just said. It's they can have it in a straight line, but if they've got 70% more weight in one limb over the other, you know, they can fundamentally, their legs are in the same position, but they're choosing
they're leaning a bit one way or leaning a bit the other
way.
way.
Which is that falling in and falling out, right?
But then obviously then you get the compensatory things that then the riders do. You know, it's very common that a rider compensates for what the horse is doing rather than correcting what the horse is doing. So, you know, the horse is falling to the outside a bit, most riders pull the inside rein. But then all that ends up happening is the horse falls out more. You know, they don't, or they try and hold it with their leg and just kind of jam their leg on and stop the horse from doing that. You know, it's teaching the horse how to carry itself straight, but you know, you have to be able to acknowledge, you know, what, first of all, what straight is, and then how you correct that. And you know, there's a lot to it, you know, but in the end, the straighter you get your horses, I mean, the easier they are to sit on. You know, I mean, I've found over the years when I've ridden horses that haven't been the straightest, I mean, it's uncomfortable, you know, and it's like you get on a horse that doesn't carry itself very evenly, and your back starts hurting, or you start feeling yourself leaning a bit because it's not comfortable. You have to get these horses to actually carry themselves in the right way. And then in turn that helps you to sit properly as well.
And when fundamentally, if we can organise horses to carry themselves functionally with a rider on board, we're making their life longer effectively, right? You know, we're
making it easier.
We're eliminating well, not eliminating, that's completely the wrong word, but helping reduce as much strain asymmetrically on joints as we can. Fundamentally, that's our goal, right? To just keep them happier for longer. That's awesome. I do just want to get back to asking Laura about because otherwise I realise that we're just going to get carried away chatting, and this episode could be very, very long and bore people, but hopefully not. You spoke earlier about the different modalities.
Yep.
I just wanted to talk a little bit more about that because I think it's a really good position for us to be able to kind of educate some people. So when I want you to just basically explain the different, you know, soft tissue, osteo, chiro, what actual things are they working on? What are we seeing? What are they doing?
Yeah, so where should I start? Sort of physio is very much sort of soft tissue. There's various different sort of qualifications for physio. You've got the ones, the ACCAP physios, which have done the human qualification and then gone into the animal training, and then you've got the veterinary physios, which aren't vets, by the way. A lot of people do get confused by that. So they are very much sort of soft tissue work. You've also got the massage therapists, which again are soft tissue.
More muscle. I mean, they're kind of working on the fascia regardless, right? Because they have no choice, but they're working. They're trained more on muscles rather than it being about the fascia, aren't they? When we talk about soft tissue.
But that's where your kind of weekend courses come in. Some massage therapists are very, very good, and they're very experienced, very knowledgeable, done loads of CPD. But you do also get the ones that have done the weekend course, so they're probably the ones you need to check your qualifications.
Check the experience, right?
The experience. As I say, that's no disrespect. I've got very good friends that are very good massage therapists.
But like Sophie said earlier, if you're passionate about it and you've done other stuff,
then you've also got the people that do the myofascial release. You get a lot of people do combine that with. So I have done some myofascial courses, and a lot of the sort of physios and bodyworkers and things, they have also done. You know, sort of the myofascial work. I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about sort of equine touch, Bowen, Reiki, things like that. That's not my area of expertise.
No, it's fine.
But there are those side of things as well. And then you've got sort of the chiropractic side. So I'm a vet chiro, and Sophie's McTimony, and I'm sure she can explain a bit more about her side of things. So mine is sort of veterinary chiros. It is very much based on manipulation, so we work very much on the skeletal system and through the adjustments in the skeletal system, so restoring sort of the alignment and sort of the optimum kind of physiological sort of.
So you're looking at the angles of bones, and you're looking at the kind of the way joints sit,
I mean, obviously you can't see the angles and things. Obviously you've got all the muscles and everything over the top, but I think shortly we'll go and see a horse, and hopefully we can. It's probably a bit easy to explain.
Yeah,
hands-on.
probably that's something to probably explain a lot of it.
Yeah.
While you're doing.
So
people can see
basically,
it.
I mean, I tend to work sort of tail to head, kind of motioning through the joints, looking at, sort of symmetry, and then sort of if I do feel there is a restriction, then it's a sort of short, sharp adjustment to kind of realign, and that then fires into the neuromuscular system, and it will then affect, although I'm not working directly on the soft tissues, it will then affect the muscles and everything as well. And then the acupuncture, I tend to combine. I don't tend to go out and acupuncture or only acupuncture for any horse. So I tend to combine that with the chiro treatment. So I find the two actually complement each other really nicely. So in the UK, you only have to do acupuncture if you're a vet.
So that's a valid point that people should remember. If anyone's coming out to treat their horse and with acupuncture, and they're not
there are some people that say they do acupuncture, and actually what they mean is they have a laser and they will do acupressure.
Right,
and that is, I guess the principles are sort of the same, but that is
because they're working on the meridians and things the same as you would with but there's no needles involved. That's
so
the
it is
distinguishing difference.
I mean, acupressure, obviously they're working on the surface, whereas some of my needles are a good 10 odd centimetres long, and they're a lot deeper. And then I also do electroacupuncture, so I can put electrodes onto my needles, and it'll put a current through them, which I think the research shows it sort of accentuates the effect sort of by up to sort of 8 times.
So you basically get the muscles firing, basically. Yeah, I mean, it's no different to having a TENS on, isn't it, or something like that. That idea.
There's loads of different principles, and loads of different things you can do. To actually acupuncture a horse with needles, you've got to be a vet in the UK.
Which sounds like it's very good. And where does osteopathy kind of fit in that? Sorry to put you on the hot spot.
So I guess osteopathy is still sort of manipulation. So I might be right, osteos might tell me differently, but I always think of that as almost being in the middle between. So I don't think their manipulation techniques are quite as, I'm trying to think of the right word, so I don't mean forceful. I mean
depth.
I was always taught that, and this could also be wrong, that osteopaths' adjustments work on the animal circulatory system rather than the nervous system.
Okay.
So chiropractic adjustments work on the neuromuscular system, where osteopaths work on the circulatory system, so like your blood flow.
Right.
And that is the difference between the two. Obviously the way the adjustments are performed are different as well, but that is the difference between an osteopath and a chiropractor.
Okay.
And I mean, the other interesting thing is as well, because obviously you would be classed as a McTimony chiropractor, and you're a vet chiropractor. So now let's explain the difference between because in the end you're both chiropractor in a general term, but there are different forms within that. So
a McTimony chiropractor, basically McTimony is the type of adjustments that we do. It was designed by a guy called John McTimony many years ago, and we'll probably find out in a while how we treat differently. I think just the way in which we perform the adjustments is slightly different. It still acts on the body in a very similar way, but just the adjustments are different.
Okay.
How we actually apply the adjustments are different.
Okay, so I guess I understand where you're coming from of trying to explain what the difference is with the actual techniques. Because some of the chiropractic work is a lot of like lifting the whole limb, and you're manipulating big joints.
Whereas all my adjustments are done from the top.
Okay.
So I don't lift. Obviously, I mean, I stretch limbs out and everything, and obviously feel through the joints lower down. But all my pelvic adjustments are all done from the top. I don't hoik anything.
So then that is then a slight difference as well, because you would do some adjustments picking a limb up.
Yeah, so pelvic rotation, I will adjust the side that is rotated downwards, so then bring that side up. So you would adjust the side that is dorsal and adjust downwards. Okay.
So it's interesting. It's basically, I mean, in the end, you're still working for the same end goal.
Yes.
But just from 2 different techniques. And again, that's something that people should keep in mind with different horses. You may have one horse that responds very well to the technique you use, and then sometimes
Absolutely.
how Laura
Yeah.
would do it. So it's that kind of you finding out what does actually work the best for that horse. You know, what
Yeah.
gets
Yeah.
that horse
Yeah.
right. You know, and another question. Which just popped in my head, is so from from your sort of professional point of view, there are a lot of massage rugs, magnetic rugs, lasers, all sorts of other, ultrasounds and TENS machines, all these different bits of equipment that we can, as horse owners, we can buy, and there's stuff we can use. What would you say are really good things to be able to use or to have, or are going to benefit horses? And there are some things. I look at some of these massage pads and things and think, well, I'm not quite sure what that's going to do other than make the horse feel nice and relaxed. But that's probably about as far as it's going to go. It's purely a kind of therapeutic relaxation thing rather than actually helping the horse.
So I think any type of massage rug, massage pad, anything along that line is never going to treat your horse. No. But I use a massage pad on my horse every day before I ride her. She has kissing spine. It helps just with relaxation before the saddle goes on.
Yep.
That's purely all I use it for, is just warming up her back and creating
blood flow.
And creating relaxation. Yeah. And that is all it's going to do. But that can be beneficial for a lot of horses. I do love a magnet. I don't know about you, but I do love a magnet. I use magnets on myself. I go to bed with magnet bracelets on sometimes when my wrists are getting sore from work, and they do help. Magnets help with increasing blood flow, and anywhere where you're going to get increased blood flow is going to help with healing or reducing inflammation, reducing pain. So I do think magnet rugs are good. Some of them can be quite heavy. Yeah. They can make the horses quite hot. So this time of year when the weather's hot, they're not always the best because then they just make the horses sweat. But I think there is a place for all of these things, but they just need to be used in the right way and not having
used regularly as well.
Yeah.
Because if you just put it on once a week,
it's not going to make a difference. No.
You need to make it part of your daily routine.
Exactly that.
Before you ride or after you ride, or
and also
whatever.
Not trying to use them instead of having your osteopath or your physio or your chiropractor.
Yeah, and I think that's sometimes a little bit of a, a little bit of a misconception, isn't it? Is that some of these massage rugs, which and some of them do have some pretty
hefty price tags.
Well, hefty price tags, but also hefty claims of what they can do. You can't just go, well, that's fine, I'll invest in that. I can use it on all my horses, and over however many years, that's going to save me on physio bills. Okay, you might find you don't need your horse physioed as much if it stays looser and more comfortable, whatever. But you're not ever going, like you say, it's not a treatment. You're not adjusting your horse. All you're doing is doing something therapeutic.
Exactly.
And in the end, if you can't afford, massage rugs and things like that. Even just, you want to warm a horse's back up and stick a hot water bottle on its back or something like that, or give it a walk before you get on it so that it's
love
moved.
A gadget.
They do love a gadget.
I've got clients that will go and spend, I don't know, I had one that bought one of those Beamer rugs from America. It was like £7,000 for a rug because it's got this thing in it that does all these things, and I'm like, great, your saddle don't fit.
No.
Oh, I can't afford to buy one. You just spent all your money on a rug.
And it's never going to target as deep as her extra long needles.
So I think that's something that's quite. I think people should remember. I find
they are complementary.
They're complementary, and they're a bit of a luxury. And if you can afford it, I've never really had those things. I have got. I use magnets. I use magnetic rugs. They're not that expensive as a rule, and I think they're good for the horses. Even just using those sometimes for, if you're travelling to a show and you can have it on when you travel there, and then the horse is a bit warmed up before you get on and all the rest of it, that sort of thing. Or if they've had a really hard training session, after that. But some of the sort of fancy rugs, if you like, sometimes I've had owners who have had one and said, I want you to use this on the horse, and we've used it, and sometimes they say, you can use it on other ones. we'll use it on the other horses. It's not something I've ever necessarily thought I have to have one of these.
It's not made such a big difference to horses that you
I thought I need one of these in my life. You know, I think that the magnets is a really useful thing, but I think, regards a lot of these other things, again, they're a little bit kind of a luxury if you can do it.
They can, and I think what's really interesting is you get a lot of these. What's the micro? What's the back on track stuff? It's got the silver and the ceramic. Ceramic stuff.
Yeah.
And, like Premier Equine and Master and quite a few companies now are doing quite affordable rugs with that in. And I have to say, I mean, my mare, she was kicked in the stifle a few years ago, and I'm not too sure it's not really affecting her joints. She's a big girl as well, and I definitely notice a difference in the colder weather. She can look just that little bit stiffer, and I obviously give her that extra time to warm up and be sure that she's lubricating her joints well before I ask her to do much stuff. But I bought myself one of those rugs, and I have to say, I put it on for like 20 minutes just before each ride or each time I worked her. Did make a difference, because I guess it's just,
I think if they're warm before they come out.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the whole purpose of warming up, right? Is to prepare the body for the work you're doing. And if putting a rug on that costs you 90 quid, it is going to help with that.
In the depths of winter when it's freezing cold.
Well, I mean, it's like anything though, isn't it? I mean, God, if we jumped out of bed in the morning and then went outside on a cold winter's day, crawled, whatever we did, opened our eyes and thought, can I move? Or is that like... Anyway, but, if you jumped out of bed the first thing in the morning on a cold morning and just sprinted across a thing, I mean, you'd pull every muscle in your body, wouldn't you? So it's kind of, or maybe just getting out of bed would do that, but still. But I think, that's things, in the end, a lot of these things, they're geared towards, blood flow, warming horses up, warming their muscles up.
And I think particularly for your horses with arthritic joints and things like that, older horses that maybe get a bit stiff standing in for longer in the winter, they are good for that, because they just keep the blood flow going a little bit more than having your normal rug on, because the ceramic ions basically, I believe, they sort of help the cells generate more heat in that area, so it bounces back from the ceramic ions to heat the body, and if it means having that rug on and it makes a big difference, then that's great if it helps. But equally, if you've got a gazillion different gadgets in your tack room and you don't actually use any of them, what's the point in having them?
And you're probably better off having one that you use regularly than having
10 that you never use.
10 that you use like one week and then one another week, and one and you chop and change and all the rest of it. So
cool. Yeah. Very cool.
Do we have any other questions that we can fire at these guys?
Probably when we get working.
I think there's going to be more questions. So
I think, it's safe to say this is an episode on its own.
Yes, there will be probably 2 more episodes watching these guys do their thing. And
the questions that come up between all of us as we're doing that. So it should be really interesting. So I think we'll call this one probably a day before it also feels like it's going to start raining as well. And then we'll go treat some ponies. Super. Cool.
Sounds good.
We shall hopefully... We will see you in the next episode.